Welcome to Offbeat Outdoors, where we dive into the heart of nature with a twist. Each episode, we explore the quirkiest, most innovative, and sometimes downright bizarre camping projects that push the boundaries of what it means to live under the stars. Whether you're a seasoned camper or a curious novice, join us as we uncover the offbeat side of outdoor living. Now your hosts, Mark and Nicky Worthington.
Ever find yourself sitting around a campfire, mesmerized by the flames, and think, there's got to be more to this fire than just warmth?
Haha. Yeah, I can't say that's ever crossed my mind. Marshmallows, maybe? But beyond that.
Okay, well, you're right. For most of us, it's just about the s'mores. But not for David Rogel, this engineer on YouTube. This guy is always building crazy contraptions. And his latest creation, it's a water pump, powered by fire.
Okay, now that's pretty interesting. I'm intrigued. Fire-powered, huh?
You heard that right, fire-powered. And get this, he's using something you'd never expect, a garden-gazing ball.
Wait, like one of those shiny silver balls people put in their gardens? You've got to be kidding.
No kidding. He's actually using it to create a pump that could eventually power a self-rotating rotisserie, all fueled by fire.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. A rotisserie. That's pretty ambitious.
Yeah.
But how on earth?
I know, right? It's wild. But before we get lost in dreams of perfectly roasted meat, let's break this down. Luckily, we've got an expert on hand to help us understand the science behind this fiery feat. So can you maybe walk us through how a fire-powered pump even works? What are we talking about here?
Sure. What's really cool about this project is how it uses these really basic scientific principles to make something so ingenious. You know, and at the core of all this is steam.
Okay, steam makes sense. Heat water, you get steam. But how do we get from steam to, actually pumping water?
Well, the thing about steam is, it's not just hot air, right? Like literally. When water goes from a liquid to a gas, it expands a lot. We're talking like up to 1,600 times its original volume.
Wait, 1,600?
Seriously? Yeah, seriously. Imagine a tiny little water droplet suddenly exploding to the size of a basketball. That's the kind of force we're dealing with.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see where the power in fire-powered comes from.
Exactly, that force, that pressure from the steam expanding.
Yeah.
That's what's driving this whole contraption. It's pretty elegant, actually.
I'm starting to understand, but where does the gazing ball fit into all of this?
So that's where things get even more interesting. We're talking thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, and heat transfer all working together. It's a pretty fascinating setup. Imagine this. You've got your standard pressure cooker, like the one your grandma might use to make, amazing stew. David uses that to create the high-pressure steam.
Okay, makes sense. Pressure cookers are all about that steam power. So he's got this superheated steam. Now what?
Well, he injects that steam into the gazing ball, which is already partially filled with water.
So we've got this blast of crazy hot steam hitting cooler water. What happens next?
It's like a sauna in there. That heat difference wants to equalize, and that's where heat transfer comes in. The steam, way hotter than the water in the gazing ball, starts transferring its heat energy. Kind of like when you hold a mug of hot cocoa on a cold day, your hands warm up as the mug cools down.
Okay, that makes sense. But the steam doesn't just hang out as steam forever, does it?
You're on a roll. You're right, the steam doesn't just stay steam. It goes through what we call a phase change. It turns back into liquid water. Condensation, right?
Right, condensation. I remember that from elementary school science class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's the wild part. This condensation process actually releases even more heat. It's like adding fuel to the fire, making the inside of the gazing ball even hotter.
So, okay, let me get this straight. We've got a sealed up gazing ball. It's getting hotter by the second, and the steam is condensing back into water, adding even more heat. That doesn't sound very good for the gazing ball.
Well, remember when we talked about that pressure from the expanding steam? That's where the pump part of this fire-powered pump comes into play. You see, the gazing ball is essentially a closed system for this experiment. Nothing can get in or out except through the specific entry and exit points David's built into it. So all that extra heat, all that condensation happening inside, causes the pressure to skyrocket.
Ah, okay. So it's kind of like squeezing a water balloon that's already full. Something's got to give.
Precisely. And that something is the water. The only way for the water to escape all that pressure is through a designated exit. So the increased volume from that condensed steam, combined with the crazy pressure, forces the water out. And that creates the continuous flow, making it a pump.
So it just keeps going and going.
Well, it's not a perpetual motion machine or anything. It reaches what we call a steady state. Think of it like a bathtub with the faucet running and the drain open. The water level stays pretty much the same because there's an equilibrium between the water coming in and the water going out. In David's pump, the balance is between the steam being generated, the steam condensing, and the water being pushed out.
Fascinating. So it'll keep pumping as long as the steam keeps coming.
Exactly. It's all dependent on how long that pressure cooker keeps going.
Which brings us back to that self-rotating rotisserie. We've got the pump, the fire. I can almost taste the deliciousness. But you mentioned earlier that David's still testing this, right? What kind of challenges do you think he might face taking this thing from his backyard to a real campsite?
That's a really good question. For one thing, keeping a consistent heat source in an uncontrolled environment like that's going to be tough. Wind, damp wood, even the kind of campfire ring he uses, that could all affect how well the steam is generated and mess with the pump's effectiveness.
Right. And what about the whole portability thing? I mean, pressure cookers and gazing balls aren't exactly lightweight camping gear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
David's going to have to find a good balance between durability and portability. And of course, we can't forget about safety. Dealing with high-pressure steam in the middle of the wilderness is nothing to mess around with.
Oh, great points. It really makes you appreciate how much thought goes into even the simplest inventions, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on David's channel to see what he comes up with. I'm sure he'll find a way to make it work. He always does.